He was already gone when I turned around. Wait, where is he? That's what Laurel asked as she reached across the table for another glass of wine, pausing mid-reach when she noticed the empty seat next to her. Kellen was gone. No sound. No door creak. No jacket missing from the chair. No shoes missing from the front hallway. He just wasn't there anymore. And that's when I realized Aloan, my wife, hadn't moved either. She was sitting there, eyes frozen on the chair like she'd seen a ghost disappear. No one else noticed yet. Everyone at the table was still laughing about the last toast. Something about team bonding and stupid inside jokes I didn't get. My fingers were still resting on the stem of my wine glass. I hadn't taken a sip. Not since the sentence. You wouldn't have survived a week with him. That was what Aloan said. Right in front of me. Right in front of everyone. And she didn't even flinch when she said it. I didn't understand what she meant. I don't think I was supposed to. It came out casually, like a fact. Like she was letting everyone in on some secret history. But Kellen heard it. He locked eyes with her. His smirk faded. And then nothing. 5 minutes later, he was gone. No one saw him leave. And somehow, I was the only one losing my mind. I stood up. I walked toward the door. His shoes were still there. But the socks? Gone. His jacket? Still on the chair. Phone. On the side table charging. But the back door? Unlocked. No prints. No footprints. It had rained earlier, so I should have seen something. But there was nothing. Like he never existed. And Aloan? She finally turned to me and said, flatly, "Don't look for him. Just that. Nothing else." I asked her what she meant. She didn't respond. I followed her into the kitchen, and she just started washing dishes like the night hadn't collapsed around us. I didn't sleep. Not because of what she said, but because I found something taped underneath Kellen's seat the next morning. A folded napkin. My name on the outside. In handwriting I didn't recognize. Inside, one line. No punctuation. No context. Just one chilling sentence. "You're not the one she's been dreaming about." I didn't touch the napkin again for hours. I couldn't. I sat on the edge of the dining chair, elbows on my knees, staring at it folded on the table like it might explode if I blinked. The words were burned into my brain. "You're not the one she's been dreaming about." What the hell did that mean? Did Aloan write it? Was it a joke? Was it meant for someone else? No. My name was written on it in ink. My name, in handwriting I couldn't place. Sharp cursive, angry strokes. Female, but not hers. And then something else hit me. The tape under the chair. That was deliberate. That note had been planted. Before dinner. Kellen didn't bring it in his pocket. Someone put it there expecting me to find it. I stood up and dragged the chair away from the table. It made a loud screech across the tile, but I didn't care anymore. I crouched down, ran my fingers underneath. Tape residue. Still sticky. 2 more small scraps. A second piece of paper? I felt something flat stuck further beneath the seat cushion. I reached in and pulled out a thin black envelope. Unmarked. Sealed tight. No name. No return address. Inside was a photo. It was old, maybe 7 or 8 years. Taken at night, on a beach. Aloan was there, laughing, holding a bottle of cheap champagne. Barefoot. Jeans rolled up. She was kissing someone. I stared at it for a full minute before I realized who it was. Kellen. His hand was on her waist, like he'd done it 1,000 times. Like it was nothing new. I had never seen this photo in my life. We weren't even together yet when this was taken. Or, that's what I thought. My hands started shaking. I didn't know what part of this to be angry about first. That someone snuck this into my house. That this dinner had been orchestrated like some twisted reveal. That my wife, the woman who once accused me of being too emotionally available, was apparently the center of some long con I didn't see coming. Or that she didn't even try to hide it. I walked back into the kitchen. She was wiping down the counters like we hadn't just lost one of the dinner guests to a full-blown disappearance. "Aloan," I said, holding up the envelope. "What is this?" She didn't even look surprised. Just tired. Like she knew it was coming. "I didn't put it there," she said. Calm. Cold. "Then who did?" She shrugged. "Does it matter?" I stared at her. Yes. Yes, it matters. Because someone sat at my table, disappeared without a trace, and left me a message saying my wife dreams of someone else. And now you're telling me. What? That's fine? I'm telling you it's old. And it's none of your business anymore. That sentence hit harder than anything else that night. None of my business anymore. I didn't yell. I didn't throw the picture. I didn't even respond. I walked back into the dining room, picked up the napkin, folded it again with trembling hands, and slid it into my back pocket. Then I checked the guest list from her work email. There was no Kellen listed. No +1. No RSVP. Which meant he wasn't invited. He wasn't supposed to be there. He showed up on his own. And someone in that room, one of those people I just served lemon tart and poured wine for, let it happen. And now he was gone. Not blocked. Not missing. Just digitally erased. His socials were gone. His phone went straight to voicemail. Even old tags of him were disappearing overnight. By noon the next day, I got a message from a private account. No name. No profile picture. Just a single sentence. Stop digging, or you'll find out why she chose him. I drove to Laurel's apartment without telling Aloan. Not because I had some grand plan. I didn't. I wasn't even thinking straight. I just knew one thing. Laurel laughed when Kellen arrived. Everyone else froze, but she smirked. I sat outside in the parking lot for 10 minutes before working up the nerve to ring her buzzer. I kept imagining her looking through the peephole, seeing me, and choosing not to answer. But she did. Barely a pause. Her voice came through the speaker. Thought you'd come sooner. My stomach twisted. The door clicked open. She lived on the 3rd floor, but it felt like climbing a mountain. By the time I reached her hallway, I was sweating through my shirt. She opened the door before I knocked. Laurel was barefoot, in a loose sweater, hair pulled back, not done up like at the dinner. She looked tired. Older. Or maybe I was just seeing people differently now. She didn't ask me why I was there. She stepped aside and gestured to the couch. I sat down. There was silence between us. Thick. Tense. I wanted to ask everything at once, but no words came out. Just the hum of her fridge in the background. She finally spoke. I didn't know he'd disappear. That wasn't what I was expecting. You mean Kellen? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. She nodded, slowly. He said he just wanted to see her again. Said it was time to end things. To stop hiding. Hiding what? I asked, the frustration creeping into my voice. Laurel took a long breath. They made a pact. Back when she got engaged to you. That if either of them ever wanted to walk away from their lives, they would meet again. Just once. And decide. No questions. No guilt. Just decide. I felt cold. You're telling me my wife planned an escape hatch? With him? While we were wedding planning. She loved him. She tried not to. But she did. I stared at her like I'd never seen her before. Laurel leaned forward, elbows on her knees. You were the safe choice. You were always the one she'd settle with. He was the one she wanted to run with. My voice cracked. Then why didn't she? She hesitated, then said something I'll never forget. Because he disappeared the first time too. That hit like a freight train. I felt dizzy. Wait, he's done this before? Laurel nodded. He vanished 6 weeks before your wedding. Just like now. Deleted his accounts. Cut all ties. She thought he changed his mind. Thought he gave up. She cried for 2 weeks straight. Then married you anyway. She didn't say it cruelly. She said it like it was just the truth. I stood up, pacing. My brain was spinning. So he comes back now? After all these years? Says nothing? Leaves some cryptic message under a chair and walks out again like it's some twisted ritual? Laurel didn't flinch. I think he came to see if she'd still go. And would she have? Laurel's silence was louder than any answer. Then she stood up, walked to a drawer, and came back with something in her hand. A folded piece of paper. Faded. Wrinkled like it had been handled too many times. She gave me this the night before your wedding. Told me not to read it unless he came back. She handed it to me. It was addressed to Kay. Just one letter. I didn't want to open it. But I did. Inside was a single sentence. If you ask me again, I'll say yes. I left Laurel's apartment shaking. Not from rage, not yet. But from the overwhelming feeling that I'd never really known the woman I married. And when I got back home, Aloan was standing at the kitchen counter, reading her phone. She didn't look up when I came in. She just said flatly, "You went to Laurel, didn't you?" I didn't answer. But she smiled. That kind of smile that isn't warm. The kind that knows something you don't. "I hope you're ready," she whispered. "Because this time, you're the one being tested." That sentence stayed with me like a splinter under the skin. You're the one being tested. I didn't sleep. Again, it wasn't even that I didn't try. I did. But I laid in bed while Aloan curled up beside me like nothing had happened. She even reached out to hold my hand in the dark. For a moment, I almost let her. That was the worst part. Somewhere deep inside me, there was still this stupid hope that she'd explain everything. That it was all a misunderstanding. A test of loyalty. A bad memory resurfacing at the worst possible time. But no, there was no misunderstanding. And she didn't sleep either. I could hear her breathing change around 3 a.m., her fingers twitching slightly, like someone dreaming or preparing. By sunrise, she was already dressed. She made coffee, said nothing. The usual silence between us had always been awkward, but this time, it felt strategic, as if she was waiting for me to move. So I did. She had a room at the back of the house she called her studio. She claimed it was for painting, even though I hadn't seen her finish a single canvas in over 2 years. It was the only room with a lock she didn't give me the key to. She said it was for creative energy. I believed her. Until now. When she left for her supposed client brunch, I waited exactly 5 minutes, then went to the back room. I didn't have a key, but the hinges weren't as new as she thought. One firm pull, and the frame gave a tiny groan. Enough to let me in without fully damaging the door. And what I saw inside wasn't paint. It was photos. Hundreds. Some printed. Some pinned. Some cut into pieces. Others layered over one another like a vision board from someone spiraling. Every single one of them featured 2 people. Eloan and Kellen. Different years. Different places. Beaches. Cafes. Hotel lobbies. One photo had them in matching coats. Another in costumes at some masquerade event I never even knew she attended. Some looked old. Early 2000s. From before she and I had even met. Others looked recent. Too recent. Like 3 weeks ago. There was one photo in particular that made me stop breathing. It was from our living room. From our couch. She was sitting beside Kellen. Same sweater she wore on my birthday. Same coffee mug I bought her for Christmas. That meant it had happened while I was at work. Or worse, when I was home and didn't know. There was also a notebook on the desk. Spiral-bound. Sloppy handwriting. Page after page of what looked like messages never sent. All addressed to Kay. Some were angry. Others longing. Some inappropriate. I won't describe them. I couldn't read most of them. Not because they were graphic, but because they were desperate. Raw. The worst was the most recent page. Scribbled in black marker, all caps, across a clean sheet. If you leave again, I'll leave him too. This time I won't choose safety. I dropped the notebook like it burned my hand. It wasn't just a past affair. It wasn't just a mistake. This was an ongoing relationship. One I'd been unknowingly orbiting like a clueless moon. She was planning for him, keeping a space in her world ready, just in case he knocked. And when he did, she folded. And I was the placeholder, the decoy husband, the man who mowed the lawn while she mapped out escape routes. I stumbled back into the hallway, trying to catch my breath, when I heard a sound I wasn't ready for, a knock at the front door. I didn't know who I expected. Maybe Eloan, realizing I'd broken into the studio. But it wasn't her. It was a courier. Envelope. No return label. Just my name, again, written in a sharp, slanted script. Inside was a flash drive. And a sticky note. Only one line, again. If you think that was the secret, you've already failed. I didn't plug it in right away. The flash drive sat on my desk like a live wire. I kept staring at it, running through every worst-case scenario in my mind. Was it a trap? A virus? A confession? A final goodbye from Kellen? Or worse, something she recorded without my knowledge? The note that came with it still clung to my hand, crumpled at the edges from how tightly I'd been gripping it. If you think that was the secret, you've already failed. The words repeated in my head like a loop, over and over again. When I finally slid the drive into my laptop, my heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. The folder that popped up was named one word: pact. Inside were 4 video files. No dates. No names. Just 1. Initiation. MP4. 2. Memory hole. MP4. 3. Red window. MP4. 4. Archive 77. MP4. I opened the first one. It was grainy, clearly recorded on an old handheld camera. The timestamp had been stripped, but the faces were clear. Eloan, Kellen, and 2 others I didn't recognize, a woman with an eyebrow piercing and a man in a hoodie who kept his head down the entire time. They were sitting in a circle, on the floor of what looked like a motel room. Bare bulbs overhead. Papers and envelopes scattered between them. Candles. Actual candles, like it was some ritual. Eloan was laughing. The woman with the piercing was recording. And then, Kellen spoke. "We do this now, or we don't do it at all," he said. "No regrets. No contact. Once we're in, we stay in. No backup lives. No safety nets." The others nodded. Aloan looked different, younger, but also sharper, like the version of her I had never met, the one who existed before me. Then she leaned forward and said her part of the pact. If we ever want out of anything, we don't explain. We vanish. No trail. No goodbye. That's when I paused the video. My hands were ice cold. I sat back, staring at my screen. They had formed a group. A pact. Not some silly late-night idea between friends. This was rehearsed, planned, and serious. But the worst part wasn't what I saw. It was what I heard. In the background, on the tape, someone else was speaking. A fifth voice. Muffled. Distant. And it was saying my name. My full name. I played it back 3 times just to be sure. But there it was. Someone in that room, or nearby, said my name, years before I ever met Aloan. That wasn't a coincidence. I opened the second file. This one was different. A hidden camera angle, recording what looked like a dinner party. In a house. Familiar furniture. But the voices were clearer. It took me a moment to realize what I was watching, a dry run. A rehearsal. Of our dinner party. The same people. Same jokes. Same order of toasts. Even the same music in the background. Kellen enters, makes a casual joke. Someone mentions duck. Aloan laughs at the same moment she did in real life. I felt sick. It had all been staged. Everything. Even the moment I thought Kellen left, was rehearsed. Only this time, in the video, he didn't vanish. He looked into the camera at the very end. And he said, "This isn't for him. It's for her." I shut the laptop so hard I nearly cracked the screen. I couldn't take it anymore. I felt like I was unraveling inside my own house. Inside my own marriage. I wasn't losing her. I never had her. I was just the stand-in. The decoy. The one she chose when the main act went silent. But now the act was back. And they were writing the next scene without me. I stumbled into the kitchen, gripping the counter like it might steady my brain. That's when I saw it. A piece of paper tucked under the fruit bowl. A return boarding pass. From 3 weeks ago. Aloan. One-way ticket. Return from Montreal. Under a different name. The alias? Liza Keller. A merge of her first name and his last name. She had already started becoming him. I sat at the kitchen table staring at the name printed on the boarding pass. Liza Keller. While the refrigerator hummed softly behind me like nothing in the world had changed. But everything had. She had flown under a fake name. 3 weeks before the dinner. The same week she told me she was working late. Same week she missed our niece's birthday. Same week I found her crying in the bathroom at 2 a.m., claiming she'd just had a long day. She had been in Montreal. Under his name. And suddenly I realized this whole thing wasn't some spontaneous emotional collapse. It was premeditated. I don't know why that made it hurt worse, but it did. She hadn't just fallen back into something. She'd been building something. Quietly. Patiently. Behind my back. Possibly for years. And if she used a fake name, then she wasn't traveling alone. That kind of thing wasn't for a solo getaway. It was a reunion. A field test. A soft launch for a new life. I opened my laptop again and searched the airline code on the ticket. It took a few minutes of digging, but I found the full flight manifest. Row 8, Seat B, Liza Keller. And right next to her, in 8C, Thomas Gray. I froze. I knew that name. Not because he was part of her inner circle. Not because I'd heard her mention him. But because he was in mine. Thomas was my coworker. My so-called friend. The guy who covered my shift 2 Fridays ago. The one who bought me drinks at a bar 6 months ago when I told him I was worried Aloan was slipping away. He said, "Bro, women get weird when they hit 30, don't sweat it. You're good." He was on that plane, sitting next to her. I couldn't breathe. I slammed my laptop shut and paced around the kitchen like a man possessed. How many people had known? How many of them had helped her lie to me? And why him? Thomas and I weren't best friends, sure, but he knew enough. He'd been over for dinner. He'd met her. He helped me move a couch once. We shared playlists. Inside jokes. He once told me he envied my relationship. What a sick joke. Fueled by fury and nothing else, I texted him. Me. Need to talk. Now. Thomas. Everything okay, man? Me. Montreal. Row 8C. Read. No reply. I waited. Then called. No answer. I called again. And this time, he picked up. No hello. No greeting. Just silence. I said, "I know everything. I know you were there. I know you were with her." Still silence. Then, finally, he said the worst possible thing he could have said. It wasn't supposed to go this far. I nearly dropped the phone. I asked, what was supposed to happen then? He sighed like he was carrying something heavy. She said he was dangerous, that she couldn't get out unless someone went with her. Someone she trusted. Someone who could keep eyes on him. I laughed. I actually laughed. It came out sharp and broken. She told you to protect her from the guy she's secretly running back to? He didn't answer. Did you sleep with her? I asked, quieter this time. A pause. I didn't mean to, he said. I ended the call. I stood in the middle of the kitchen and felt the weight of everything come crashing down at once. She'd built this escape plan using pieces of my life. My coworker, my routines, my silence. She'd used me as cover while she moved in shadows. And even worse, the people I thought were mine had already chosen sides. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I didn't scream. I just walked to her studio, her altar of obsession, and opened that notebook again. This time, I flipped to the very back. There was something glued to the last page. A tiny, creased Polaroid. A cabin. Snow on the roof. A single set of footprints leading to the front door. And in her handwriting beneath it. He promised this would be ours. It took me 4 hours and a ridiculous amount of online digging to find it. The cabin from the Polaroid wasn't marked anywhere publicly. No tags, no Airbnb listings, nothing on satellite maps. But there was one clue, a small reflection in the photo window. A tree line, very specific, crooked and windburned, leaning left, and a frozen lake just visible behind it. That lake saved me. After narrowing it down with image comparison software, I found a match, a secluded spot in northern Vermont, barely 15 miles from the Canadian border. A place locals called The Rest. Ironic name, given what I was feeling. I packed a bag. Didn't tell anyone. Not even my sister, who had been texting all week asking if I was okay. I needed answers. Real ones. Not fragments or journal entries or messages written on napkins. I needed to stand in the one place Aloan had dreamed about. I needed to see what was so important it made her willing to destroy her entire life, and mine, for it. The road to the cabin was awful. Snowed in. I had to park half a mile away and hike through thick drifts. My boots soaked through within 20 minutes. By the time I reached it, my fingers were numb. But there it was. Exactly like the photo. The same slanted roof. The same door. The same broken porch light. And the same single set of footprints in the snow leading up to the door. But here's the thing. It had snowed that morning, which meant someone had walked up to that cabin today. Not last week. Not years ago. Today. I froze. Checked my phone. No signal. I don't know what possessed me to keep going, but I did. I climbed the porch, hand trembling as I reached for the handle. It was unlocked. The door creaked open. The air inside was stale and cold, but not dead. Someone had been there recently. A mug sat half-finished on the counter. Coffee still in it. A blanket tossed over the couch. The place wasn't abandoned. It was waiting. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. No lights. Just pale gray daylight bleeding through the windows. The cabin was small. One room and a half loft above it. No signs of tech. Just a notebook on the table. Old. Leather-bound. I opened it slowly, expecting more writing from Aloan. But it wasn't hers. It was his. Kellen's. Dozens of pages, journal style. Some entries were fragmented. Others sounded completely detached from reality. But one thing was consistent. They all mentioned her. Every single one. I told her I'd wait until she chose herself. She said I was a myth. That no one would believe her if I came back. She didn't marry him because she loved him. She married him because he was the only version of normal she thought she could survive. And then, near the end, something different. I saw the cameras. I know they watched us rehearse. But this version isn't mine anymore. That line made my blood turn cold. I flipped to the next page. There was a list of dates. Every one of them matched key moments in my marriage. The day I proposed. The day we moved in together. The night Aloan told me she was pregnant, even though she later said it was a false alarm. And beside each date, a location. Followed by a small, handwritten number. Coordinates. I grabbed the journal and sat on the floor, checking the first few locations using my offline map app. They were real. And they were all remote. Places we had never gone. But she had. And then, the final page. A single sentence. Like everything else in this cursed story, she never left me. She just pretended to be your wife until it was safe. I stood up so fast the chair behind me fell over. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely hold the book. And then I heard it, the soft sound of a phone vibrating somewhere inside the cabin. Not mine. I followed the sound. Under the floorboards. There was a hatch in the corner near the fireplace. Barely visible. I pried it open and shined my flashlight down. There was a mattress, a blanket, a backpack, and a phone. Still vibrating. Still active. I climbed halfway down and picked it up. One new message. From a number I didn't recognize. But the message was short. Just 4 words. He's there. Be ready. I climbed out, heart pounding. I didn't know if it was meant for Kellen or for Aloan. I only knew one thing. I hadn't walked into the past. I had walked straight into a setup. And the trap hadn't been sprung yet. I didn't leave the cabin. Not right away. I stood in the center of that creaking wooden floor, surrounded by decades of secrets, half-truths, and the bones of a love that had never truly been mine. My breath clouded in the cold air. My hands clenched around the notebook I never asked to read. That message still burned in my head. He's there. Be ready. Who had sent it? Were they watching now? Was this entire thing not just an affair, but a performance? A controlled descent, carefully staged? My phone had no signal, and the burner phone I found didn't offer clues beyond the message history, which had all been wiped. Except for one. A single saved contact, L. No other info. Just that. I sat down. My brain felt like it was splintering. I wasn't just betrayed, I was manipulated. Dragged into someone else's movie. The husband written in to serve his role. Left with just enough crumbs to think I was unraveling it on my own. Until I noticed something new. Beneath the mattress in the crawl space, a second flash drive. Wrapped in plastic. Labeled only with a red sticker. When I finally got home later that night, I didn't even shower. I just plugged it in, terrified and exhausted. It contained a single video. Grainy, but clear. It was a confession. From Kellen. He looked thinner than I remembered. Hollowed out. But he was calm. I know what you think this is, he began, but it's not. I never came to take her back. I came to set her free. He looked down, then back at the lens. She spent her whole life running. First from her father, then from the version of herself he made her believe she had to become. I was her escape, not her partner. Just the door she used to leave the cage. He leaned closer. She never loved me. She loved who she was with me. But eventually, she started needing more than running. She needed something solid. He paused. Then, in the softest voice imaginable. And you gave that to her. You, not me. My mouth went dry. He continued. She tried to love you right. She tried to choose you. But when I reappeared, all the old panic came rushing back. Not because she wanted me, but because she didn't know how to live without the idea of me. He took a breath. I disappeared again for her. Because she couldn't walk away if I stayed. That night at the dinner table, that was my goodbye. I needed her to see that it wasn't a fantasy anymore. That it would destroy her. You too. And then, the final words. She's not who you thought she was. But she's not who she used to be either. If you still want her, this is the moment to choose. The screen went black. I sat there for a long time. Hours, maybe. Then I did something I didn't expect. I forgave her. Not because she deserved it. Not because she asked. But because I needed to choose me now. Not as a reaction to her lies, but as a decision of my own. So I wrote her a letter. Not angry. Not dramatic. Just honest. I told her I knew everything. That I wasn't blind anymore. That I understood now. She didn't betray me to hurt me. She betrayed me because she didn't know how to be honest with herself. And I ended the letter with a sentence that was finally mine. I release you. And I choose peace. I moved out a week later. No dramatic final confrontation. No shouting. No tears. She didn't fight it. She just asked, is there someone else? And I told her the truth. No. There's just me. For the first time in years, that's enough. That was 6 months ago. I moved to a quieter town. Took a remote job. Started hiking again. Met people who knew nothing about my past. For the first time, I stopped trying to be someone's second choice or rescue plan. And last week, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside, a single Polaroid. The same cabin. Empty. Abandoned. No footprints this time. Just a small note scribbled on the back. She never came back. This time, she chose herself too. I smiled. Maybe we both failed the test. Or maybe, we passed it in a way no one expected.